Hello, we're here again with another video. This week we're going to be learning about inventors, entrepreneurs, and inventions. And as you can see from the slide, this means Eli Whitney, Cyrus McCormick, Joe Anderson, and the Cotton Gin, and even the Reaper. Remember to have your homework sheet out and ready to go so that you can be filling in the blanks and also answering the questions as we go along. And of course, always you can pause, rewind, and review this information as you need to. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is go through some words that you need to know, also known as vocabulary. The first word I want to look at is the word profit. The word profit means the money earned after all business expenses are considered. And in all businesses, people are selling things for a profit. That's sort of the whole reason that people go into business. And it's a pretty familiar concept for people today. Another word we need to look at is the word cultivate. This means to prepare and work on land in order to raise a crop. If I were going to use this word in a sentence, I would say that the farmer worked hard to cultivate the land in order to have the best cotton that he could grow. So that is the second word that we want to look at. The next word is productivity. This word is one that is used when we're talking about business, and it means the rate at which goods and services are produced. A business today is judged by its productivity. An example of good productivity might be a factory that was able to get 20 truckloads of its item ready to ship. An example of low productivity would be a business that's only able to get 5 things ready to sell in a day's time. And productivity is measured by lots of different factors, but that's just an example. And now let's define the word inventor. An inventor is a person who is the first to think of or make something. Some examples of famous inventors are Thomas Edison and his light bulb, Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone, and Martin Cooper and his invention of the cell phone. What would we do without that today, right? These men were the first to come up with and make these items. Their inventions changed the world just like the men that we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, on the other end of that is the word entrepreneur. And this is a fancy word for a person who organizes resources to bring a new or better product to market in hopes of earning a profit. There's that word profit. And some examples of this are Henry Ford and the Ford Company, Walt Disney and the children's entertainment industry, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs with computers. These men were not the ones that thought up automobiles or children's entertainment or computers, but they were ones who took that idea and maybe tweaked it a little bit and put it out there so that they could make a profit. Keep in mind that you do not have to be an entrepreneur in order to invent something, and you don't have to be an inventor in order to be an entrepreneur. Some of the men that we talk about today were one or the other, and some of them were both. So the first person we want to talk about is Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney is famous for his invention of the cotton gin. He was an inventor and an entrepreneur. He made the cotton gin, as we discussed and read about in class today. He also took it to market and sold the item. Now remember that the cotton gin is a machine that separated the seed from the cotton fibers. And this was a process that took a really long time to do by hand. And it was a welcome invention in this day and age when cotton farming was a big deal in the southern states of the United States of America. And it really increased the productivity of our cotton farmers. In fact, I was reading an article about this, and it said that some of the farmers and the workers their productivity was increased by 50%, meaning that they could do twice as much in the same amount of time using the cotton gin as they did by separating by hand. So that's kind of an interesting fact. The next inventor is Cyrus McCormick and Joe Anderson. Now, Cyrus McCormick was more of an entrepreneur. Joe Anderson is a slave that worked on the farm that Cyrus McCormick was at. These two men worked together to invent something called the Reaper. Because Joe Anderson was a slave, however, he couldn't get a patent or like the rights to sell this item. So this meant that Cyrus McCormick owned all the rights to the invention. He was able to get the patent and sell the invention of the Reaper. This is the Reaper right here. And the Reaper was a machine that was made to cut standing grain faster and easier. And Joe Anderson, like I said, he wasn't going to be able to get a patent because he was a slave, so Cyrus McCormick did that. And he took the reaper to market, and he was able to make a big profit selling it to farmers. And once again, this was an invention that increased the productivity of the American farmer. Now let's look at the cost and benefits of these different machines that were made during this time. The benefit means the good side. The good side of the cotton gin was that it made the job easier and faster for people who were working with cotton at the time. It also made cotton more available because the farmers were able to clean more cotton and get more to market faster. And it increased the selling of cotton and cotton products. Now, on the other side of that, the cost of the cotton gin, or the bad side of the cotton gin invention, was that it increased the demand for slave labor. Now, slave labor had gone down since the Revolutionary War and was slowly sort of rising up in the USA. With the invention of the cotton gin, it increased a whole lot. And that was because the farmers needed more slaves in order to gather more cotton, in order to put it in the gin and sell more and make more money. It was just a process that happened because of this invention. Now, the second invention that we looked at was the reaper. The benefits of the reaper is that, once again, it increased the productivity for the American farmer. It increased the availability of food, and it decreased the need for imported food. So our American farmers were able to make more food, sell more food to the American people. Food was more available to the American people. Those are all good things. Now, the cost of the reaper, the bad side of things, was that it increased the demand for grains, and so it was difficult for small farmers because this machine was actually quite expensive at the time. And if a small farm couldn't afford to buy a reaper, they couldn't keep up with the demand, they were not going to be able to make it. So small farms were taken over by larger ones. And it also saw the farming industry become more mechanical and more industrialized. So as you can see, these different inventions had good sides and bad sides. Now, an interesting thing to look at is there are several things that were made and invented during this time. The cotton gin and the reaper are just two of them. I wanted to share real quick a few everyday items that we know of that were invented between 1805 and 1861. So this is before the Civil War. Refrigeration was invented during this time. The telegraph and Morse code were invented during this time. The sewing machine, photography, a fax machine was actually invented during this time. The ice cream makers, safety pins, toilet paper, pencil erasers, and vacuum, and even the machine gun was invented right before the Civil War. So these are all, during this time, lots of really neat things being invented that we have adapted over time and are using today. In fact, I cannot imagine my life without a vacuum cleaner, and I'm sure that many of you have vacuum cleaners in your home. At the time these things were invented, they were new and exciting. Some of them were bigger and harder to use than they are now, but like I said, through time they've been adapted into the things that we know exactly today. So this was a really exciting time in our country as new things were being invented to make life easier, and the cotton gin and the reaper were just two of those inventions. And last week we studied about the steamboat and the steam locomotive, and those were two other inventions that came about at this time that really changed the way that things were in our world during the 1800s. Now, here's some key points for us to remember. Remember that, once again, things are good and bad with these inventions. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more about the causes and effects of inventions, but here's the key points. The inventor is a person who thinks of and makes something first. An entrepreneur is a person who takes an invention to market and makes a profit. Eli Whitney was the inventor of the cotton gin. He also was an entrepreneur because he took it to market and sold it. And the cotton gin was a machine that separated cotton from the sticky cotton seeds. Joe Anderson was a slave that helped invent the reaper, and Cyrus McCormick helped invent the reaper and was the entrepreneur who took it to market. And the reaper was a machine that was used to cut standing crops. And once again, remember that there were good and bad things, or benefits and costs, about all of our inventions. So hopefully you have learned lots about inventions, inventors, and entrepreneurs. And don't forget to fill out your homework sheet and bring that in tomorrow. Remember, if you do not remember to bring it into class, you'll have to sit there and redo it while we all do an activity. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.